Have you ever felt your body acting differently and wondered if it's secretly warning you that the end might be near? It might sound strange, but for many seniors, the body begins to whisper quiet warnings long before anyone realizes the truth. These warnings aren't always dramatic or obvious. In fact, they're often subtle, slow-moving changes, easy to brush off as just getting older. But dismissing them could be a critical mistake. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 warning signs that 99% of seniors show about a year before they pass away. These aren't just medical facts pulled from a textbook. They're the patterns noticed by caregivers, hospice workers, doctors, and even loved ones who've watched closely. While not every sign guarantees anything, recognizing them early can help you take action, make peace, or even reverse course if possible. You may find that 1 or 2 of these signs are things you've seen in someone you care about, or maybe you're noticing them in yourself. Either way, by staying aware, you give yourself power. Power to respond, to prepare, and to live the time you have left with more clarity and intention. Please stay with us through the end of this video. You might recognize a pattern you hadn't noticed before, and more importantly, you'll understand what it really means and how to respond with wisdom instead of fear. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Increased sensitivity to temperature. One of the lesser known, yet surprisingly common signs that a person may be approaching the final stretch of life is a growing sensitivity to temperature and physical sensation. You may notice someone feeling cold all the time, even when the room is warm, or they may begin complaining that a once comfortable blanket now feels itchy or too heavy. Small sensations, like a cool breeze, a splash of water, or even gentle touch, can start to feel exaggerated, uncomfortable, or even irritating. At first glance, this might seem like a minor annoyance, but underneath it lies something deeper. As the body begins to slow down, circulation becomes less efficient. Blood doesn't flow as strongly to the extremities, hands, feet, toes, and fingers. Skin thins, fat stores diminish, and the body struggles to regulate internal temperature. What once felt neutral may now feel intensely cold or oddly warm. These shifts aren't imagined. They're real physical changes, and they often appear in the year leading up to major health decline. You may also notice that the person begins layering on sweaters even in mild weather, or they no longer enjoy showers because the water feels too intense. For some, even a soft bedsheet can feel abrasive, and they may toss and turn through the night trying to get comfortable. This discomfort is not just a nuisance. It's the body's way of saying things aren't working quite like they used to. Consider Paul, a 79-year-old veteran who used to spend his evenings sitting on his porch, even in the winter. Over time, his daughter began noticing that Paul was avoiding the outdoors altogether. He'd bundle up indoors with thick socks, gloves, and 3 blankets, yet still shivered. "The cold gets in my bones," he'd say, even when the thermostat read 75. He also started flinching at small touches and complained about rough fabrics. A few months later, Paul was diagnosed with advanced heart failure. Looking back, his sensitivity to touch and temperature was one of the first signs his body had already begun preparing for a slower, quieter season. This increased sensitivity isn't just physical, it has emotional layers too. As a person's energy wanes, their tolerance for stimulation often declines as well. They may prefer dim lights, soft sounds, and minimal distractions. Environments that once felt warm and welcoming can suddenly feel overwhelming. This retreat from sensation mirrors the larger retreat from the world that often occurs as a person nears the end. If you notice someone becoming more sensitive to touch or temperature, the most important thing you can offer is understanding. Adjust the environment. Lower the lights, provide soft, breathable fabrics, keep rooms at a consistent, comfortable temperature, and above all, ask them what makes them feel most at ease. These adjustments might seem small, but they can bring enormous comfort during a time when every ounce of peace matters. Number 2, persistent. Fatigue that doesn't improve with rest. When you're tired after a long day, that's normal. But when you're still tired after a full night's sleep, when even simple tasks, like brushing your teeth or folding laundry, feel like climbing a hill, that's when something deeper might be going on. For many seniors, persistent, unexplained fatigue can be one of the clearest early warning signs that the body is starting to slow down in a more permanent way. This isn't just the kind of tiredness that comes from a busy week or a bad mattress. This is a bone-deep exhaustion, a constant sense of heaviness that doesn't go away, no matter how much rest you get. You might find yourself napping during the day, then waking up more tired than when you went to bed. You may feel mentally foggy, disconnected, or less motivated to engage in things you used to enjoy. In many cases, this exhaustion is also linked to chronic inflammation or low oxygen levels in the blood, both of which are common in the later stages of life. As circulation weakens and cells receive less oxygen, the body begins to conserve its strength, reducing energy output across the board. It's not just that the body is tired, it's preparing for rest in a much larger sense. Take the story of Linda, a 74-year-old woman who had always been active in her church and community. Over a few months, she began skipping choir rehearsals and asking others to take over her volunteer duties. She told her friends she was just a little worn out, but the truth was, even walking to the mailbox left her breathless. No matter how early she went to bed or how healthy she ate, the fatigue didn't lift. Doctors later discovered that her heart was struggling, and her energy loss was one of the earliest signs that her body was winding down. Persistent fatigue is not something to ignore. It's one of the body's most honest signals, and it rarely lies. When your energy fades, it's not just about getting old. It could be your body's way of asking for help, for understanding, or for peace. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 3. Subtle changes in voice and speech patterns. When someone's voice begins to sound softer, slower, or more fragile than it used to, it's easy to brush it off as just age catching up. But in many seniors, especially during the final year of life, these subtle vocal shifts can be quiet, but meaningful indicators of deeper physical changes. The way a person speaks, how strong their voice is, how clearly they pronounce words, even how often they join a conversation can all begin to shift as their body starts conserving energy for more essential functions. What makes this warning sign so easy to miss is that it doesn't always happen overnight. it begins with small things. Maybe someone who used to greet you with a strong, cheerful "good morning" now barely whispers it. Maybe you notice longer pauses between their words, or that they stop finishing their sentences like they used to. Some people begin repeating themselves more often or losing their train of thought mid-sentence. And sometimes, they simply stop talking much at all. These changes aren't always linked to cognitive decline, although memory loss can certainly play a role. Often they're a sign that the muscles responsible for speech, tiny muscles in the throat, mouth, and diaphragm, are weakening. Just like the rest of the body, those muscles can tire out, and when energy is in short supply, speaking loudly or clearly simply doesn't feel worth the effort. Let me share the story of Richard, an retired school principal who once had a deep, commanding voice that filled any room. His wife, Margaret, began noticing that Richard's voice had grown raspy and faint. He no longer chimed in during group conversations, and when he did speak, it was short and low. "It's just my throat acting up," he'd say. But over time, his words became fewer, and his voice almost disappeared altogether. Within a year, Richard's health declined significantly, and his doctors explained that the vocal changes were part of his body's overall weakening, slow and quiet step toward the end. These changes can also appear as a form of speech hesitation. The person may know what they want to say, but struggle to get the words out. Their pacing becomes slower, and their speech may slur slightly, especially in the evenings when their energy is lowest. It's not just about communication, it's about the body choosing to conserve its limited strength. Number 4. Subtle changes. In breathing patterns, breathing is something we usually take for granted until it changes. One of the more telling signs that the body is entering a different stage of life is when breathing patterns shift in ways that are quiet but persistent. These changes may be so subtle at first that they go unnoticed. But if you know what to look for, they can tell you more than words ever could. In many seniors, these changes begin with small signs. Breathing may become more shallow or uneven. Some people develop a faint wheeze or occasional gasping, especially at night. Others start pausing between breaths or sighing more frequently. These may not seem urgent or dangerous, but they are often the body's way of signaling that the heart and lungs are under stress. As the body ages, the lungs lose elasticity, and the muscles that help us breathe can weaken. If the heart begins to struggle, oxygen delivery to the rest of the body becomes less efficient. This creates a cascade of tiny adjustments in how we breathe, how deeply, how often, and how easily. Over time, these adjustments become more noticeable, especially during sleep or periods of rest. In the later stages of life, hospice nurses often report hearing what they call Cheyne-Stokes breathing. This is a pattern where breathing becomes irregular, fast for a few seconds, then slowing down, then stopping briefly before starting again. It can be unsettling to witness, especially for family members. But to the person experiencing it, it's often not painful or even noticeable. It's the body's way of regulating itself when energy is running low. Let me tell you about Margaret, a 76-year-old who began showing signs of this kind of change. Her daughter noticed that during their phone calls, Margaret was breathing a little more heavily than usual. She brushed it off, saying it was just because she'd walked across the room. But eventually, Margaret started avoiding long conversations altogether, saying she just felt too tired later. Her family realized she had been experiencing early signs of respiratory decline for months. But because she never complained, no one thought much of it until her condition suddenly worsened. It's important to note that not all breathing changes are directly tied to aging. Sometimes it's asthma, sleep apnea, or a reaction to medication. But when these shifts come slowly, persist over time, and occur without any clear cause, they should never be ignored. They are often the body's way of saying that its systems are under pressure. And sometimes, that pressure is related to a larger, more permanent transition. From a psychological perspective, breathing also reflects emotion. People nearing the end of life often feel more anxious, even if they can't explain why. That anxiety can manifest in breathlessness, chest tightness, or a sense of restlessness. The body and mind are deeply connected, and changes in one often ripple through the other. If you or someone you love is starting to show signs of irregular breathing in small ways, take a moment to pause and observe. Listen closely, not just to the sound of the breath, but to the rhythm, the depth, and the ease or difficulty with which it flows. These quiet patterns speak volumes about what the body's going through. There's no need to panic, but there is a need to pay attention. Often, these breathing changes are the body's way of asking for gentleness, for slower mornings, softer movements, and more space to rest. It's a call for patience, not panic. And recognizing it early can help bring comfort, not just for the person experiencing it, but for everyone who loves them. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment. Number 4, below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 5. Growing indifference toward daily routines and personal hygiene. When someone who once took pride in their appearance suddenly stops brushing their hair, changing their clothes, or showing interest in meals and daily routines, it's more than forgetfulness. It's a quiet turning point. This kind of shift often begins subtly: a missed shower here, a skipped breakfast there. But over time, it becomes clear that the spark that once kept them engaged with the world around them is fading. And for many seniors, this indifference starts to appear in the final year of life. It's important to understand that this change doesn't happen because the person no longer cares. In fact, it often happens because the energy or willpower to care starts to run low. The simple acts of living, getting dressed, brushing teeth, cooking a meal can begin to feel overwhelming, unnecessary, or even irrelevant. What once brought structure to their day now feels like a chore they'd rather skip. Some people describe this shift as a kind of surrender, not dramatic or even verbal, but a quiet letting go. There's a deep emotional and physiological process behind it. The body begins to slow down. Fatigue becomes a daily companion. The mind drifts more frequently into memory, into stillness, into reflection. And with that, the need to maintain external routines begins to fall away. This doesn't necessarily mean the person is depressed, though it can look similar. Depression often comes with sadness, hopelessness, or guilt. But this type of indifference feels more like resignation, a sense that the busyness of life no longer matters the way it once did. They're not crying out for help, they're just quietly stepping back from the things they used to do without question. Consider the story of Edna, an 81-year-old woman who was always impeccably dressed, even for simple trips to the post office. But her daughter noticed that Edna had stopped wearing earrings, wasn't styling her hair anymore, and sometimes stayed in the same nightgown for days. When asked if something was wrong, Edna would just smile and say, "I'm fine. I just don't feel like fussing with all that these days." Her appetite faded too, and her once tidy home started to gather dust. A few months later, she was diagnosed with a terminal condition that had been silently progressing for over a year. Her body knew before the test did. When a senior starts letting go of personal grooming or stops participating in the rhythm of daily life, it's often because their internal clock has begun to slow. Their attention shifts inward. Time feels different. Moments stretch longer, and the urgency to maintain routines disappears. This detachment can also be a way of preserving energy for what matters most: relationships, reflection, or simply resting. If you notice these changes in someone you love, resist the urge to push them back into routines too quickly. Instead, offer support gently. Sit beside them. Offer help with grooming, not as a task, but as a gift of love. Encourage a meal not out of duty, but as a moment to share together. These acts become less about hygiene and more about connection, about honoring who they are now, not who they used to be. And if you're experiencing this shift yourself, know that it's not something to be ashamed of. It doesn't mean you're lazy or neglectful. It may simply mean you're entering a new chapter, one that calls for more rest, more stillness, and a different kind of care. This sign is easy to overlook or misinterpret. But when seen with compassion, it tells a very human story that life is beginning to slow, and what once felt essential may no longer feel that way. Not because you're giving up, but because you're starting to let go gently, and in your own time. Final thoughts. If any part of today's message stirred something in your heart, you're not alone. These signs, the fatigue, the quiet voice, the breath that falters, the slipping away from routine, aren't just random quirks of aging. They're gentle nudges from the body, signals that life is shifting, and that attention, care, and presence are more important than ever. For some, they're reminders to seek medical help. For others, they offer a chance to reflect, to prepare, and to focus on what truly matters in the time we have. But remember this: recognizing these signs is not about giving up. It's about tuning in. It's about meeting life where it is not with fear, but with grace. Whether you're noticing these changes in yourself or someone you love, your awareness is a gift that allows for more meaningful conversations, more thoughtful decisions, and more peaceful transitions. Because when we understand what the body is telling us, we can respond not with panic, but with love, compassion, and dignity. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to fix everything. Sometimes, just being present, just noticing's enough. And that presence can be the greatest comfort of all. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.